Getting fit for a pair of ski boots is more than just having the length and width of your feet measured. We need some more information, some more data points in order to get you in a pair of boots that's going to serve you well out on the hill. The first thing I want to know as a boot fitter is need to know more about you and your skiing. I need to understand your history. What has been some issues for you in ski boots in the past? What injuries do you maybe have? Surgeries? Any issues with feet, your body in general? How active are you? Where do you spend your time on the hill? All of those things are super helpful. And then where do you want to take your skiing? What are some priorities? What are some goals? Now, when it comes time to measuring your feet, if you really want to make sure that you're having a good boot fit, you're going to need to take not just those shoes off, obviously. We're going to need to take your socks off too. Now, the reason we're taking socks off isn't necessarily for a more, precise measurement of your feet, but when you take your socks off, we can see parts of your feet that may be bothering you, along a bunion or right here, ankle bone. There's parts that are red that look like they've been maybe more fatigued, or just a part of your foot that it just juts out more and could potentially be an issue for you in ski boots. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to have to touch your feet. We're going to have to squeeze those things to understand how rigid or soft they are in certain parts. Generally speaking, in my experience, feet that are more rigid tend to have a lower tolerance for compression, and feet that are squishier have a higher tolerance for compression. The next thing we're going to do is we need to understand how good of dorsiflexion do you have. So we're going to have you stand up, feet shoulder width apart, and we're going to have you bend your knees forward and see how far you can bend your knees forward without your heel lifting off the ground. The other thing that we're going to be looking at when you're doing that motion is just how your feet are moving. Are you pronating? Are you supinating? What's happening? Now, the next measurement we're going to do is the instep measurement, and we're just doing that with a seamstress tape. And we're taking it from one side of the heel all the way around here, and we're seeing what that measurement is. Now, what this measurement tells us is if the length of your foot equals this measurement I just did, your ankle or instep is proportionate. And this is helping us understand the volume ski boot you're supposed to be in. All right, so now we're going to measure the length and width on your feet. And how we do that here at the Ski Monster is with a scanner. So we're gonna have you place your feet on the green, feet even, hit the scan button, and now we got the length and width of my feet. If we look at my scan here, we can see that I'm 6 millimeters longer in my left, and I'm also 1 millimeter wider in my left foot. Now the instep measurement for me is 26 centimeters in both feet. I have a lower volume foot because the instep measurement is less than the length of my foot. Now, one thing that's really nice about having these scanners, and this is winter number 3 we're going on using these, is this scan lives here during the entire boot fitting process. So we can constantly refer back to these depending on what the customer is feeling in the boots. Not only can I reference back to it, they can look at it too and understand, oh, that makes sense why this is maybe feeling looser here or tighter here. Now, all of these measurements and conversation are all data points that we as boot fitters need in order to get you in a great fitting pair of boots. So the more data points you can give that boot fitter, the happier you're gonna be on the hill. If you measure 106 millimeters wide at 29.5, your feet aren't wide. If you measure 96 millimeters wide at 24.5, your feet are not narrow. Proportionally, they're the same as measuring 100 millimeters wide at 26.5. Published ski boot last is based off of 26.5 only. As you go up or down a size, that width is going to change by 2 millimeters. Now, some brands like Atomic actually illustrate this on the shell. Now, if you look at this Atomic Hawx Prime, which is 100 millimeter last, 26.5, it's gonna say 100 millimeters on the bottom. 24.5 says 96 millimeters at the bottom. In 29.5, it's gonna say 106 millimeters. If you're looking at ski boots and you're getting a little freaked out that there might not be something as wide as my feet are, you don't necessarily need to. Published ski boot last is based upon 26.5. So as you go up or down a size, that ski boot last is actually gonna change by 2 millimeters. It is not 100 millimeters wide in every single size. It scales. Here at the Ski Monster, we measure a lot of feet per year. Personally, I measure about 1,000 feet per year. And it's very rare that we see perfectly symmetrical feet where they're the exact same length, exact same width. Honestly, every year I get less than a dozen that are perfectly symmetrical. They're almost always different. And in rare cases, they're really pretty different, just like my feet. You can see how I'm 27 centimeters in the left and 26.4 centimeters in the right. And what you could be wondering is, what size are you going off of? And too many people are sizing their boots off the bigger size. And that's going to give them issues once they get out on the hill. Sure, Things are going to feel comfy. They're not going to be complaining much when they're in the store hanging out in a 70-degree environment. But once they get on the hill, clicked into their bindings, they need to steer these skis around on an uneven, slippery surface and be balanced. That's when feet start to hurt when you end up sizing off the bigger foot. So when in doubt, go off of the smaller foot and make adjustments to the bigger foot. We can always expand, punch out, grind shells to make some of those adjustments. That's not hard to do, but it's quite a bit harder to make boots smaller. So when in doubt, go off the smaller foot. You'll be stoked.
Hey guys, George the Ski Monster here to talk about ski boots again. But today we're going to get into sizing ski boots and why you shouldn't go up a size when you're buying them. The reason why a lot of people think they should size up in a pair of ski boots is so their toes aren't jamming against the front, or they're nervous that they're going to hit the front, they're going to get black toenails, all that stuff when they're actually out there. Maybe a bit of that is from personal experience. They've heard it through the grapevine, friend, family, whatever. They just want to make sure that doesn't happen. All right, now this problem of being sized up in ski boots isn't limited to when someone is actually going to a store to buy a pair of boots. It happens all the time with people that are renting boots, because a lot of those rental processes are going off shoe size, and shoe size is quite often bigger than what you actually measure. So if you've rented boots and are feeling some of these issues where, you're going like this with your feet, skiing in the back seat, arches are hurting, shins are hurting, you're in a rental boots, and that's why so many people that go from rental boots to getting their first pair of fitted boots have all of these issues go away. When you're out there skiing, you're skiing on an uneven surface, the slope is slippery, and you're trying to have these really long pairs of skis be in control and carve you around on turns, right? So if you don't have a boot that's really gripping your foot, then your feet start to go like this. Now, do me a favor. If you're wearing shoes, take them off, and I want you to stand flat, and you'll feel how even that is on your feet, right? Now, I want you to just go curl up your toes, just like that. And what you just noticed is now you got a bunch of weight on your heels. Now you're skiing in the back seat. So this whole effort that you made to try to make your toes not jam to the front because the boot isn't capable of doing its job, now you're skiing in the back seat. Now your toes are really jamming up against the front, and you haven't solved anything. The other thing that is going to happen when you do that is now your feet are working so much harder to keep you stable that now your arches are starting to hurt. They're getting achy from working so hard to keep you stable when you're actually out there. Now you're also skiing in the back seat. Now you're probably getting some shin pain. It kind of feels like shin splints. And let's do this exercise quick. Take a seat, put your hands on the front of your shins. Now, you can feel that muscle right there. I want you to lift your toes up to the sky, and you're going to feel that muscle fire. Now, when that thing gets fatigued, just like the bottoms of your feet did, everything aches, everything hurts. And all this happened because you tried to solve some pain issues by going up a size. Now, if you've watched any of our other boot videos, maybe you've gotten ski boots here, you've talked with a good boot fitter. The goal when you're getting a pair of boots is to have the pressure surrounding your feet feel as even, uniform, consistent as possible while keeping your heel secure. Now that even, uniform, consistent pressure that I'm talking about, that is the same regardless of skier, ability, experience, whatever. No one is going out there trying to have their ski boots hurt. They want everything to fit like a glove. The tolerance for that pressure is different based upon your experience and ability. Regardless, uniform, consistent pressure, heel secure, that's what we want. Now, another reason your toes can jam up to the front, maybe you're watching this video and you know that you didn't size up. What can happen is one of two things. You could be tired out there skiing in the back seat, and what's going to happen is if you look at this boot, you can see how this is angled forward. If you go to stand up tall in the boots, your calf hits this and it shoves your foot forward, making it so your toes jam up. So if you're out there, toes are jamming up, just be honest with yourself. Am I tired? Am I fatigued? Did I get enough sleep last night? Am I hungover? Okay, that might be why my toes are jamming up against the front. If you do feel like, you know what, I'm on top of my skis, I'm balanced, I feel good, double check these two buckles. It's very possible that these things are too loose. So double check these to make sure that your heel is secure. Again, heel being secure in your boots, that's what we're going for. So Again, do not size up in a pair of ski boots. You're not going to do yourself any favors besides feeling more comfortable in the ski shop where you actually got them. The wheels are going to fall off the second you get on the hill, and you're not going to have a good time, and you're going to be in and out of a shop, and eventually what you're going to have to do is just buy the correct pair of ski boots.
Your ski boots felt perfect in the store when you got them, but once you got on the hill, they started to feel too big and sloppy. Now, there's more than just ski boots breaking in and your tolerance for compression going up. Other thing that's happening going from the store to out on the hill is we're increasing load. I mean, here we're just static. Once we get into more dynamic movements, load is increasing. Now, to illustrate this, we're gonna do it with an actual handshake. So shaking hands here, this feels normal, but it's not a firm handshake. So once I go to apply a load, and what that would be comparable to is skiing more aggressively, more demanding terrain, more aggressive turns. The more dynamically you're skiing, the more the load is increasing. So when I start to pull away, we have no grip. So if we focus on having a firm handshake, once we go to apply load, everything is staying gripped and feeling connected. So that's why when you're getting your ski boots, if you're focusing on having that firm handshake feel, you're gonna be happy. Now, a firm handshake doesn't mean that things have to hurt. Just focus on, and I'm gonna sound like a broken record, uniform, consistent pressure, heel secure, stable, firm handshake, you're gonna be happy. Heels lifting in ski boots. It's a common worry that plenty of skiers have, and we're gonna go over the two main reasons why that's happening. One of those reasons is there's too much space on top of your foot. Now, that could be just as simple as buckling down a little bit harder, but it's more likely that you're in a boot that is too high volume, meaning there's too much space on top of your foot, the boot's too wide, and when a boot gets wider, there's also going to be more room here, or the boots in general are too big. And as this goes longer, you're going to get more space here, which is going to make it easier to do this motion here, since there's nothing on top keeping your foot down. Now, another cause for heels lifting in ski boots is really due to poor ankle mobility. If you don't have the ability to flex your knees forward and get your knees past your big toes, that's a red flag that you're going to need to be in a more upright boot. Basically, if you look at this ski boot here, you can see this angle leaning forward, and we do need to flex into boots. And if you're not able to get into this position, your heel is going to be elevated, and you're going to feel like your heel's lifting anytime you flex forward. So what we need to do is we need to get you in a more upright pair of ski boots, or we need to adjust a given pair of ski boots, like this guy here, adjusting the forward lean so the cuff is more upright, and honestly have you on the stiffer side to work within the parameters of what your anatomy can do.
Hey guys, George of the Ski Monster, and today we're going to talk about the different types of footbeds that come in your boots or you could put in your boots, ranging from what comes in their stock to the various trim to fits to doing a full custom footbed. So to get started, let's talk about what comes stock in your boots. And there's not much to these guys. And you may be wondering why, but the reason for that is you can't have a footbed in here that's going to feel offensive to people. So a footbed starts to feel weird for people if the arch is too high for your foot. So it'll feel normal or fine, not offensive, if the arch height in here equal to or less than what your arch is. So in order to have a good first fit for everybody, the arches are basically flat. There's nothing to these things. There's no stability, anything. They're very simple. It's basically like a glorified piece of felt. Now, why would you switch out of a stock footbed and go to something else? Well, if you've watched any of these other videos, you've heard me talk about, what a ski boot does. And its job is really obviously to fit your foot, to fit like a glove, keep that heel secure. That's really what we want. But we need that thing to keep you in a ready position. And a stock footbed doesn't do as good of a job as that as a trim to fit or a custom footbed. Really, by switching out footbeds, we're getting more of that fits like a glove, stable, secure feel, going 360 degrees, fully encompassing the foot, not just being on the sides, top, and up the leg, on the bottom, like literally making something more stable. Now, the next step up from being in a stock footbed is going to a trim to fit. Now, the reason they're called trim to fits is we're literally basically selecting a footbed close to your size and trimming it to the exact size of this footbed. Now, what's important to do when you're selecting a trim to fit is make sure that you're getting one that makes sense with the height of your arch. You don't want to feel like your arch is being pushed up. Your arch isn't designed to support weight, kind of similar to your palm. And if you could imagine doing, push-ups on golf balls, that's what it's going to feel like if you select a footbed that has too much arch for your respective foot. So make sure that it just feels even, like it's there. Nothing should feel like it's pushing up. It shouldn't feel like there's a gap. Now, feet do measure differently. Arches can be different. Unfortunately, I hate to break it to you, you're probably not perfectly symmetrical. We measure a lot of feet here, and when we're scanning those things, it is really rare in the thousands of feet that we measure that we're even the same length and width. So the likelihood of your arches being symmetrical as well, really rare. Another point too, if you have a really flat foot or a really high arch, like Eric that works here, they're crazier than the St. Louis arches, there isn't a great trim to fit for you. Now, if you're really looking for the best fit and performance, getting a custom footbed is a no-brainer. We're truly molding a blank like this to your foot, and it is going to be specific to your foot, not symmetrical like these are. Again, your feet probably aren't symmetrical. So if you want something to feel like it's really holding and gripping your foot, keeping you stable, this is going to be the best option for you. Now, the reason why so much foot pain goes away once someone goes into a footbed, even one of these trim to fits, as opposed to being in here, is because your feet have to work a lot less hard to keep you stable. Moving away from a stock footbed into a trim to fit, and especially a custom footbed, is going to keep you in that ready, balanced position, so your feet aren't working so hard to keep you stable. And that's kind of when they feel like they're really starting to cramp up or they get kind of achy. Feet are working really hard, and it happens more often here. Now, there are people that have moved into a trim to fit or a custom footbed, and it's worked for a little while, and then their feet start to ache again. If you live a really sedentary lifestyle, you're not that active. Skiing is kind of crazy. You're out there for a long time balancing on an uneven surface that's slippery with these 6-foot things attached to your feet. And balancing is tough. So if that's the only time you're being active on your feet are probably gonna hurt. It's not anything wrong necessarily with your boots. You've done footbeds, maybe you've done all the right things. You just need to be more active in general. Sorry, a lot of people don't wanna hear that, but that's the truth. Now, if you have a pair of ski boots and you're in a stock pair of footbeds and you feel like you have some pressure points that you might wanna have some stuff punched out, ground down, a little bit of liner work, before you do some of that work, it honestly might be resolved if you get a footbed. And this will help, but a custom footbed is the best option. If you really want a great fit, 360, something that fits like a glove, keeping you secure, again, custom is the way. I know I sound like a broken record, but every single one of us here at the Ski Monster uses these. Basically, everyone you know at a ski shop that fits boots has a pair of custom footbeds. And the reason we do is because it keeps us more balanced, in a ready position, feet get less fatigued, and it feels more precise when we're out there. Now, to sum up, getting out of a stock footbed is a great idea. You don't have to, but you're going to see comfort and performance improvement if you do. It's going to be a big improvement going to here. Just make sure you get the correct arch height. It's not pushing up too much. But if you really want your boots to feel amazing, be more comfortable, have more performance, going with a custom footbed is the answer, and you're probably gonna need less work done on your boots, and you're truly gonna be happy when you're out there. Today, we're gonna talk about an issue that plenty of skiers experience on the hill, and that's the bottom of their feet feeling achy or starting to burn up. This can happen even more when skiing on really bad snow, bumps, or on steeper terrain. Now, what's happening and why your feet are starting to ache or feel burny is they're really just getting fatigued from having to work so hard to keep you balanced. And feet have to work harder when there's too much space somewhere in the boot. Could be length, width, too sloppy of a heel, too much room on top of the foot, or simply the boots are too soft and they're not keeping you in that athletic position and you're having to work harder to stay centered on your skis. Now, another thing that plenty of skiers do is they add a footbed. You can go to a trim to fit or a custom footbed would be ideal. Those are filling up some of the voids and helping you keep you more stable. Now, the reason footbeds work in ski boots is because your feet don't have to work as hard to keep you stable. And that's the exact problem with adding these footbeds to your everyday shoes. In everyday life, we need to be working to promote foot strength. Having footbeds in those shoes isn't gonna help you do that. So if we wanna be set up for success on the hill, promote foot strength, in everyday life, walk more, jump more. Even if you're going to the gym doing bicep curls, take your shoes off and you're going to realize how hard your feet are working to keep you stable. And if you're doing things like that and you get into a well-fitted pair of boots with footbeds, you're set up for success, and this isn't going to be a problem of achy feet that you're experiencing out on the hill.
Why is it common for skiers to be told to ski in a pair of boots a few days before getting them work done? 1, yes, boots are going to break in. 2, your feet are going to break in. Your tolerance for compression is going to go up, and we don't want to prematurely punch or grind a pair of boots so you end up being in ski boots that are too big. It's hard to make shells go back. Yes, you can get them to go back a little bit, but you can't necessarily get them to go back all the way. Now, before you get any work done on a pair of boots, it is a really good idea to get a pair of custom footbeds. If you haven't switched to a trim to fit, or better yet, a custom footbed, do that before getting work done. If you do it in the opposite order, where you got a new pair of boots, you're feeling a pressure point, you get that punched out, and then you add a pair of footbeds, you can feel like it's too big in certain spots. To give you an example, I typically ski in about 3 pairs of ski boots a year, testing them. As you can imagine, all of those fits are dialed. I switch out footbeds between them. If I get a pair of boots on and I forgot to put my footbeds in, yeah, it happens every once in a while. Every part of my foot where I've punched stuff out, like on the pinky toe, base of the navicular here, feels like I need to punch them again. It feels like the boots are too small. There's aggressive pressure points in those spots. Once my footbed goes in, I'm fine. I'm good to go. So point being, if you feel like you got pressure points and you don't have a pair of custom footbeds, consider adding those before getting work done to your pair of boots, and you're gonna have a more dialed fit. Where did Flex Index numbers come from? 130, 120, 110? Why 130? Well, it all started with the 1994-1995 Nordica Grand Prix RT. And the plastic that Nordica used for that boot came from a company named BASF. And one of the reference numbers they had on the plastic that Nordica used to produce that boot was coded 130. Nordica was looking for a way to illustrate stiffness, quality, and performance of boots more effectively, and they used that reference number that BASF honestly made up to start with their flagship model. And then, as you can see, if you're looking at this 1994-1995 catalog from Nordica, they really just scaled the numbers down. That's where Flex Index came from. Now, to a lot of you guys listening, Flex Index really doesn't seem like it's been around for 30 some years. And that's because at the time, back in the 90s, Flex Index was really only illustrated by Nordica using a silver sticker that was placed on the cuff of the boot, as you can see here. Nordica didn't bring Flex Index into the naming of ski boots until the 2004-2005 Nordica Doberman, and then bringing it into their full commercial collection in 2008-2009. Now, other brands did adopt Nordica's Flex Index numbers previous to that. The first brands to do so were Salomon and Lang, really just copying the numbers to be relevant. A misconception with ski boots is that 130 must be some type of measurement about the amount of force that's going into a ski boot in order to make it bend. That's simply not true. It was just a reference code that BASF used on the plastic that Nordica happened to use in their flagship boot, the Nordica Grand Prix RT, and then they scaled everything down. And this is part of the reason why there's so much confusion around Flex Index. There is no standardization to anything. It was Nordica simply just trying to illustrate a better way to explain how performance increases with ski boots, so do features, and so do quality. What Flex Index ski boots should you be in? It's a question we get all the time, and the problem with that question is in order for there to be a specific answer, Flex Index would have to be standardized. It's not. It's not comparable brand to brand. It's not even comparable within brand. Now, unfortunately, ski boot marketing has made Flex Indexes more associated with ability than it should be. Regardless of your ability, a ski boot's job is the same. It's great if it fits your foot, but its purpose is to make a ski bend and keep that skier balanced in a ready and athletic position. Beginner and progressing skiers really struggle with 2 things, and that is balancing on the hill, getting skis to initiate a turn, and feeling more confident in speed. Softer boots have a harder time doing those things in comparison to stiffer boots. Now, what we're looking for as boot fitters when you're here in the store getting fit for a pair of boots is we want to see your knee get over your big toe. We want to see the cuff of the boot engage the shell, as you can kind of see happening here. Now, you might be saying, these boots are at room temperature, boots stiffen up in the cold. Yes, that's true. But when you're clicked into your bindings, it's easier to bend your knees forward and get that cuff to engage the lower part of the shell. Now, I am not saying that you need to be in the stiffest boots that exist. I'm not saying that you need to be in race boots. I'm really talking about not selling yourself short. Just buy the stiffest boot that you can flex properly, that has that firm handshake feel, uniform, consistent pressure, heel secure, those words you hear me say all the time in all these videos. Women, look at least a 95 flex boot. Men, look at least a 110. Those would be the minimum viable products for the majority of all mountain skis that are out there. You'll have enough boot to bend a lot of those skis and generally have a good time.
Super soft, stiffer, way stiffer. What was the point of me doing that to these toilet paper rolls? And it's really to illustrate that a ski boot's flex is dependent on the foot inside of it. The less volume that your foot takes up inside of a boot, the softer it's going to feel, and vice versa. And that's the reason why when you tighten up your ski boots, they feel stiffer.
This touring boot is made with stiffer plastic than this race boot. The stiffest boots are made with the softest plastic. I know, that sounds crazy. The stiffness of a boot is a function of the thickness of the shell and the stiffness of that plastic. The reason boots like this are so heavy is because the shell walls are super thick. Now, because they're super thick, they can use softer plastic. That softer plastic allows this to feel more damp and smooth when you're out there skiing. Now, when we get into a touring boot like this guy here, we're not just focused on downhill performance and having a smooth, damp ride like in this thing. We need to be able to go uphill. And in order to minimize weight, we need the shell walls to be much thinner. We basically need to use less material. And because of that, we need to use really stiff plastic. Otherwise, this thing would be a complete puddle. Now, the plastic in this boot is 10 times stiffer than the plastic in this boot. Now, because these shell walls are super thin and the plastic is super stiff, there's nowhere for that vibration to go except for to you. And that's why touring boots feel much more nervous, especially on firmer snow, than boots like this that feel damp and super smooth. Do aftermarket liners stiffen up a pair of ski boots? They can, but not really in the way that you might think. If the aftermarket liner you're putting into your existing pair of ski boots takes up more volume than the previous liner that was in there, basically reducing the dead space inside of the boot, is going to feel stiffer. I've talked about that in a couple of videos we've done over the last couple of years. This guy here with the toilet paper rolls, this one here with the Technica Mach 1 LV, MV, and HV, to basically illustrate that point. Now, you don't necessarily need to go to an aftermarket liner to accomplish the same thing. If you had a fully packed out stock liner that you skied 200 plus days in, and you put the exact same liner in the same pair of boots, it's gonna feel a little bit stiffer just because less dead space is being taken up. So it's not really the liner that's making it feel stiffer. Yes, it can be like denser and feel like snugger or more precise around your foot, but what's making the boot flex stiffer is just the fact that it's taking up more dead space than the previous liner that was in there. What does it feel like when your ski boots are too soft? Part of a ski boot's job is to make a ski bend, right? When your boots are too soft for the ski, it feels like the ski is making the boot bend. It feels like a mismatch. It feels like when you're going to drive the ski is kind of taking you for a ride instead of you telling the ski what to do. Now, this is gonna be something you can feel more often when you're on metal laminate skis that are more powerful. That can happen on Forcers, Anomalies, Blizzard Brahmas, Bonafides, frontside carving skis, race skis. You tip those things up on edge, your shin angle increases and you're not getting any more power back. The ski is overpowering the boots. Now, a common worry skiers have when shopping for a pair of skis is this going to be too much ski for me? That could be true if you don't have enough boot to bend that ski. It might not be too much ski for you, but with the boots you have, it can feel too much. In front of me, I got two 130s, the Lang Shadow 130 LV and the Atomic Remedy 130. Now, if you've heard us talk about how to decipher flex index, pick a flex index, pick a volume, look at the weights. The heavier boot is going to have more downhill performance every single time. Between these two boots, both low volume 130s, this is about 2,300 grams, this is 2,000 grams. Most skiers can feel about a 75 to 100 gram difference. So 300 grams is really significant. For me, in a boot like this, 2,000 gram 130, this can feel like it's too soft if I'm on race skis, frontside carving skis, a vocal mantra, a vocal kendo. I just don't feel like I have enough boot. I feel like the ski is making the boot bend, not me making the ski bend. When I get into a boot that weighs 2,200 grams plus, I feel like I can drive whatever ski I want. So if you're feeling some of those things, like the ski is taking you for a ride, it might be time for an upgrade. You might need to get a stiffer pair of boots. Don't get hung up on the flex index numbers. Look at the weight. That's going to decipher all this flex index BS. BOA versus buckles. So you have two parts to a boot. You have your cuff and your shell. Cuffs wrap really well already. They really don't need help with that. But shells, this lower part here, it has a difficult time, really because it's a weird shape and it's fixed right here. So because this boa weaves back and forth so much, it helps keep that shell shape intact regardless of how tight you're making this thing. Now, it's not that buckles don't wrap, but once you go to put effort into this buckle, it goes from wrapping to collapsing. Now, some people depend on that shell collapsing in order to get sufficient pressure on top of their foot. That is really more of an outlier situation. Most people don't need that. Most people have the opposite. They struggle with having excessive pressure from the shell collapsing instead of wrapping like boa does. So boa being on the shell really provides a lot of solutions for fit issues that people have experienced with excessive pressure on top of their foot. Now, whenever we add a boa dial to a zone, we go from having 2 fit adjustments to 1. We're going on winter number 4 of selling boa on the shell, and we sell a lot of ski boots, fit a lot of these things. We really have not seen the complaint that people talk about, online, in forums, in comments about wanting to have more pressure on this buckle and less pressure here. That can be something that you experience or that you want, but it's not something we've really seen, out here fitting boots. Now, where we really do run into a problem with this going from 2 independent adjustments to 1 is when we get to the cuff. And we really are losing the ability to accommodate varying leg shapes. Now, I've done so many videos on this topic, and one that we did earlier this year, I definitely kicked the hornet's nest and really ticked boa off about this. And what they will say, like, yeah, George, but look at this. This cable can go all the way over here. It's self-regulating. Okay, that's great. But if you have reached the desired tension here, ski boot fitting is all about tolerance for compression. If you have reached the desired tension on your calf, but you want to get it snugger on the lower part of your leg, there is no way for that to accommodate. As you tighten this, everything has to get tighter at the same rate. There is no way for the boa dial to know what you're feeling and that it's too tight up here. So we really struggle with accommodating varying leg shapes up here. Now, if your leg shape lines up really well with the shape of this cuff and you have average tolerance for compression going from top to bottom, yeah, you're gonna have a good experience. If that changes, yeah, you're kind of sunk. The other people that can have a successful experience with boa being on the cuff is skiers that have really struggled to get the cuff of their boots snug enough. With buckles, if you are going to make this tighter, in order to get tighter, you have to loosen. Like basically this gets looser so you can go another notch over. With boa, you don't lose any ground. You just keep getting tighter, 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 and that's going at a 4-to-1 gear ratio. So overall, I'm saying this in winter of 2026, most of us here, all of us probably, we're a fan of boa being on the shell. Better use case here than it is on the cuff. We would be more of a fan of boa being on the cuff if there was more than 1 dial, because that's having 2 independent adjustments is super important to accommodate varying leg shapes. Handling tolerance of compression. That is what boot fitting is all about, and buckles do that really well. As I mentioned at the beginning of this, cuffs have always wrapped really well. This is a simple shape, and this does a great job. How tight do you buckle your ski boots? There's only one person that knows the answer to that, and it's you, the skier. What you want to do when you're buckling up your ski boots is you want to buckle so the pressure feels uniform, consistent, and secure. Now, the more time you're spending in your ski boots, the tighter you're going to be able to go. Basically, your tolerance for compression is going up. You might notice if you're on a trip that's 5 days long, you're able to buckle up your boots tighter day 5 than you could day 1. So don't feel locked in to exact places. You might need to make adjustments. Now, the other thing, don't feel obligated to make them the same left to right. It is very rare that we see symmetrical feet. The sensitivity between each foot doesn't have to be symmetrical either. So on each foot, buckle up so that pressure feels uniform, consistent, and secure. If this one's on 2, that one's on 3, hopefully you can get over that. That's the feeling you're chasing. You chase that feeling, you're gonna be a lot happier when you're out there. Why do we lose downhill performance when we add a walk mode to a boot? Well, first things first, typically walk mode boots, you're making them lighter. Boots that are lighter weight aren't gonna have as much downhill performance as something that is heavier. Let's pretend that all things are equal. Weight's the same, plastic, but we have a fixed cuff in the Ultra 120 and a walk mode on this Ultra Extended. If you look at this boot here, you can see where we have this huge chunk of plastic missing here, where it's completely present on this part of the boot. Also, if you look at the walk mode boot on the inside, you can see where we have this V cut right here, where that's completely intact. There's nothing cut out on the fixed cuff version. Now, both of those things are cut out to give the boot rearward range of motion and then forward range of motion. But, you know, it comes with a little bit of sacrifice. Now, if you look at this walk mode boot, because that V cut specifically on the inside exists, it makes it so the shell can deform much more than its fixed cuff sibling, where less energy is being lost in transmission in the fixed cuff than there is in here. So if you do have a couple sets of boots, or if you've used a hybrid or touring boot and you've wondered why it doesn't have some of the same performance, it just feels like a little bit slower, a little less responsive and precise, that's why.
Hey guys, George the Ski Monster, and today we're going to be covering how long ski boots last and when it's time for a new pair. Now, this is a question we get all the time, and the answer is, honestly, it really depends. Liners are going to last you anywhere from 80 to 120 days. Shells are going to last you anywhere from 150 to 200 days. Now, why such a big range? Well, a ski day is different to everybody. Some people just go out there and take one run. Some people just go out there and cruise for 5 runs. Some people ski hard half a day. Some people ski hard all day and then wear their boots at opera and don't take them out off until 10 p.m. Everybody's ski day is different. And also, everybody's in different quality of boots. The higher the quality of boot, the higher end boot you buy, typically over 600, 650 bucks, that's when you're getting into a top tier boot. Boots like that are going to last longer. Everything about them is made of better materials. The shell, the buckles, the liner, the strap, the parts, everything about them is nicer. Now, the other big thing is how well you take care of these things. And general maintenance, no matter who you are, if you want your boots to last longer, when you get done skiing, it's a good idea to take not just the liners out of your boots, but the footbed as well. Let all of this stuff dry out. That way we don't get too much mold in here, not too much bacteria building up here. And then whenever you're not using the boot, buckle this thing back up. Then when it's time to go skiing, you have all this stuff warm, it's dry. That's also going to make it so you don't get as cold. The next day you're out there, you can have a much better time, and just throw these things back in. Following that general maintenance of just taking care of your boots, letting them air out, dry, keeping them buckled when you're not using them is going to be tremendously helpful. There are other things, other parts on these boots that can wear out, break, and just because something breaks or wears out doesn't mean you need to get a new pair of boots. It can be replaced. And I'm talking about buckles, the power strap, the grip pads, even the walk mode on the back of here, a boa, these liners as well. Now, all of those things have, cost for the part, and then maybe a little bit of labor to have stuff installed or a liner remolded. Buckles can be up to 40, 50 bucks a piece, and a liner anywhere from $150 to $250. So there are costs in maintaining that boot. And it's just going to be up to you if the math makes sense, and it's all situational. And whatever ski shop you're at, that boot fitter can help you walk through that if you have any questions. Now, what are some signs that your boots are getting too old and it might be time for a set of new ones? Your boots are feeling packed out. That's probably a term you've heard skiers, boot fitters, whoever say, where it doesn't feel like you have the same heel hold. You feel like you're sloshing around side to side, front to back. Either way, you're not being held like you used to. Now, that's with the liner. The other thing that can happen with the shell is it doesn't feel like it's flexing the same. It feels too soft. It feels like you're having to work a lot harder to get the same thing done when the boot was brand new. Basically, the boot has lost a lot of its life. It doesn't have the same pop and rebound that it used to. Now, how long do these things last, and when it's time for a new one? It'd be awesome if we could put an exact number on it, even exact number for a specific model, but we can't because everybody's ski day is different. Some people just go to the hill, have drinks. Some people ski half a day. Some people ski all day. everybody is different. And then everybody cares for their stuff much differently. And those are going to change the range of how these things, how long they last. The other thing is, how well do you want this piece of equipment to perform? And towards the end of its life, or if you're really trying to stretch out the life of the boot and get everything out of it, it's not performing at its best during it. Honestly, I'm not running a boot that long. Part of my job is to know exactly what the performance of a ski is and be able to compare those nuances. If you've watched other videos, you've heard me talk about that. And I need a boot that's delivering performance so I get that feedback from the ski. And I'm not going to get that from a boot that's 150 days old. So I'm not skiing on a boot longer than 100 days. Everybody's different. That's where my priorities are, and yours may be different. Now, to wrap up, make sure you take care of your boots. Air these things out, buckle them when you're not using them. And if you do want to buy a boot off the jump that's going to last longer, buy a higher end boot if it makes sense for you. Now, if you're not sure what you should do with your current pair of boots, could be a part issue, a fit issue, you just don't really know, it's probably time to see a boot fitter to see what you should do. If it's staying the course, maybe replacing a part or two, or maybe it's time for new boots.